The next set of tools that we will have a look at is the more analysis tools, and there are three that are important for this module and also important in terms of vector data analysis, and they are buffer, which also includes the multiple ring buffer tool, intersect, and then union. So the first one, buffer, um, involves where you measure a distance from a specific feature and you indicate that distance as a boundary from a feature. For instance, if you have a river and you want to know which areas falls within 500 meters of a river, um, and you want to visibly display it other than just select it by a location, you want to display that zone that's within, say, 50 meters from a river, you can use the buffer tool to create a boundary around that river that's 50 meters to either side of it. Okay, so I've got an example here, again for the Clockwy local municipality. If we zoom in here, you'll see we've got wetland data. So this is water bodies and wetlands. Alright, so everything that's water related except the river lines. Alright, so what we would like to do for this example, let's say we would like to see which areas falls within 500 meters of these water bodies. So the ideal tool for this will be the buffer tool. So the buffer tool you'll find under analysis tools, under the proximity tool set, you'll see there's a tool called buffer tools. So if I double click it, again it gives me an explanation. It tells me buffer creates buffer polygons around input features to a specific distance. So if you have points and an input, you give it a distance and it creates buffer areas around those points, and you can automatically ask it to dissolve it. So if you have overlapping boundaries, then you can tell it please dissolve it into one feature. Alright, so that's what buffer basically does. So you can do this for points, lines and polygons. I'm going to use the polygon wetlands dataset, and I'm going to ask it to create a buffer of 500 meters. That's within our law, by the way. Anything that happens within 500 meters of a classified wetland should be considered for in our environmental assessment. Okay, so I tell it to use a linear unit of 500 meters. Remember to specify this. And then you've got a few options of how you want this buffer to be made, or calculated rather. Let's just use the defaults for now. Again, you need to specify your output location. Where do you want to save this thing? Alright, so remember that you specify the output location. Say OK. Alright, and there you can see it's buffering. Alright, and here you can see a new data set is added to our map. It's called wetlands buffer. Right, so there we had the wetlands, and this is the buffer zones around the wetlands. So if I left click and hold and move this one below the wetlands, you can actually see the actual wetlands with their 500 meter buffers around them. I did not select the dissolve option, so you can see we've got boundaries there that's not dissolved. So let's do it again. Let's remove this one, and let's do it this time with the dissolve option. So I'm going to go wetlands, linear unit, 500 meters, and there's an option there, dissolve. Okay, let's dissolve all of it. Here you can see the different options, it's described for you. Let's say OK. And there we have our new layer. Let's just move it below wetlands again. Alright, and it looks a bit better. Now you can see those boundaries were dissolved. Alright, so this is the buffer tool. So this you will use whenever you need to spatially see the areas around specific features. If you have distances that you're interested in and you want to show those distances, you will use the buffer tool. There's also a tool called the multiple buffer tool. So I'm just going to type in here multiple. Alright, there it is, multiple ring buffer. So this is the same as buffer, except you can have multiple distances. So let's say we want to use wetlands again, but we've got a distance of, let's say, 100 meters plus a distance of 500 meters plus a distance of 800 meters for some reason. So you're interested in different distances from a feature. It's going to ask you what unit to use. Again, specified. Don't use the default. Say meters, and I'm going to say dissolve all. Again, I need to specify my output location. I'm going to say OK, and it starts doing a multiple ring buffer. And here you can see the new layer added to our map with the different distances indicated. So if I move this one and leave wetlands again, alright, so you can see the first distance is really short. Let's zoom in a bit. There's the actual wetlands, there's the 100 meter buffer, the 500, and then the 800 meter buffer. So this you do when you've got different distances that you're interested in, that you need to use for different types of analysis. Say you want to communicate something like the impacts of activities will be higher the closer you get to the wetlands. You'll do something like this. Let's make this one a red color. That's not red. A red color and a orange color, and the furthest one a yellow color. Okay, and this sort of communicates the closer you get to the wetland, the higher the impact will be, or the more sensitive the area will be. Alright, so this is when you might want to use a multiple ring buffer to communicate that sort of message. Okay, so the buffer tool is also one that you're going to use quite a lot whenever you want to show the distances from features. So I'll often ask you these types of questions, to consider something that's happening within a certain distance from a river or a wetland. Okay, so then you will use the buffer tool to indicate those areas that falls within that specific distance from a certain feature. The next tool that I want to have a look at is called the intersect tool. Okay, now for this one we're going to use our wetlands buffer. Let's just zoom to that one, the first one we created. Okay, so we're going to use this buffer one. I'm just going to turn off wetlands itself. Okay, so we've got wetlands buffer. I'm just going to move the boundary up there to be alright, so that we get the context. And let's use the soil potential that we clipped earlier as well. Okay, so let's open soil potential. And let's have a look at what kind of info we have. Okay, let's say we want to know which areas are within 500 meters from wetlands and also have soils that is highly suited for arable agriculture. Alright, so we will be interested in those types of soils, highly suitable for arable agriculture where climate permits and are within 500 meters from wetlands. So for some reason those are areas that we are interested in. Okay, to spatially identify and show those areas, we're going to use an intersect tool. Now the first thing we need to do from the soil potential dataset, we need to extract only those soils that are relevant. Okay, so for that you've learned you can use the select by attributes method. So to take soils, potential clip, soil potential equals that one there, soils highly suitable for arable agriculture. So okay, again the one there's two of them you can see that's now selected. Now in order to only use this these areas that we've selected in an intersect analysis, we need to separate it from the original dataset. So to do that, you right click on this soil potential clip dataset and you'll see there's an option there, selection. Now selection refers to the ones that's selected in blue now. Okay, so selection, and then you've got two options. You've got an option that say create layer from selected features. If I click this, you can see soil potential clip selection is created, and that's a new layer with only those features that are selected through my select by attribute process. Okay, and I get it on its own. But this is only temporary data. It's not stored anywhere on your computer permanently. If you want to store this selection permanently, your other option is to right click, click on data, export data, and then select an output location. I'm going to save it in my default folder. Let's say high potential soil .shape. I'm going to say save. Sorry, I'm saving in a due database here, so it needs to be a file, personal due database feature class. Alright, so save. I'm going to use the original spatial reference. Say OK. Add new layer, and here you can see a new layer is added. It's exactly the same as the soil potential clip feature, but this one is now stored permanently in the folder which I selected, so I can't lose this information. So if you want to save it permanently, use the data export, and it will export the selected features to a new layer or feature class. So I'm going to remove the temporary one, and I can turn off soil potential. So what I'm left with is only the soils I'm interested in, which is soils highly suitable to arable agriculture where climate permits. Okay, so I'm interested in these soils, and I want to know where these soils overlap with areas that are within 500 meters from wetlands, which I already selected through the buffer exercise. So now I can combine these two layers with one another. So for that, I'm going to use the intersect tool. Intersect tool you'll find under analysis tools overlay, and there's an intersect tool. Double click it, and I'm going to ask it use the high potential soil and intersect it with my wetlands buffer, that one there, the 500 meter buffer. So you can have multiple layers here that you intersect with one another. You need to specify where you want to save this newly created feature, this intersect feature. I'm going to say OK, and now you can see a new layer is added to ArcMap. And if I turn off the soil potential, I turn off the wetlands, you can see it only shows the areas where we had 500 meter buffers and the specific soil. So all the buffers that does not fall on our specific soil type has been excluded. So take this one for example. That one's been cut in half, and the only area that's displayed is the one that meets both of the criteria. Okay, so this is the intersect tool. This is where you have a number of criteria that you want to combine in an analysis. You know exactly what you're looking for, and you want to see where all the different criteria are true. In other words, where you have the soil type you're interested in, where you have the buffer from the wetlands, where you have the vegetation type that you're interested in. You want to see only the areas where all of these different criteria are true. You're going to use the intersect tool. Now the final tool I briefly want to show you is the union tool, and that you find also under overlay union. And the union tool looks the same as the intersect tool, or works the same. So I'm going to select again, let's say my high potential soil, and I'm going to select my wetlands again. I need to specify my output location, and I say OK. And the union tool will add a new layer as well, but what you see here is everything is retained. Okay, so the only thing the union tool does is it takes everything from both the two input features that you used and it displays it. It puts it into a new layer. Okay, so you won't be using this that often. It's more likely that you'll be using the intersect tool, specifically when I ask you questions to identify specific areas that meets a number of criteria. I want you to use the intersect tool. Alright, so these are the basic vector analysis tools. I'm going to use, in the next video I'll show you an example of how to combine this in a type of question that I might ask you. And you'll see you'll often need to combine your select by attribute, select by location, your data management tools and your analysis tools to answer the question. So you need to have all those skills, and then you will need to create a map as well at the end of all of that. Okay, so you can see how this will build on the previous knowledge. So important that you know how to do select by attributes, select by locations, you know how to symbolize your data, and you know how to create maps. Just being able to do analysis is not enough. You need to take your results and put it into a map, into a product. Okay, so the next video will show an example of how to apply these tools.